Hello. Okay, so first thing I need to do with this is apologize. I had actually scheduled this live stream for 5 p.m. It's now 20 past 6 UK time. So I really apologize to anyone who was waiting around and nothing happened. If it was me, if I was in your position, I'd feel irritated. Basically, what happened was I went to do this live stream at the time I said, and the Wi-Fi was just out. It had actually improved over the last year. That's why I've been complacent. But unfortunately, the Wi-Fi did go at that time, and yeah, it just unfortunately when I went to do the live stream, it was just getting a blank screen, and it was taking forever to load, and the Wi-Fi was playing up. So it seems to be okay now. So I'll do this as long as it lasts. But again, I really apologize if you tuned in at 5 p.m. Well, I wasn't there. It wasn't deliberate, I assure you. It was just my Wi-Fi. So I do apologize. I could have changed the setting on the video which I advertised this, but I that might just be too confusing because 5 o'clock was the initially scheduled time. I see two people, two, one, two. If you're here, please do say hello. Declan, I knew you asked me about this on the video, so hopefully you'll see this one. Yeah, again, I can only apologize because I didn't realize the Wi-Fi would do what it done. So um, that's the problem with doing these live streams spontaneously, or rather at various times, because my Wi-Fi can be unreliable. I mean, I could do this in the morning when the Wi-Fi is more reliable, but then I find more people are free in the evening, so it's difficult to say. Okay, two people are viewing, so please say something if you're watching this, and we'll try and get something going. Um, it's I feel bad. I feel like, hey Declan, yeah. So I apologize for that. I guess you were one of the people who were waiting for that stream an hour ago, but my Wi-Fi just went, so I am sorry about that. I can imagine, it would have been like anyway. Pleased that you're here now. So I've got three viewers, not three viewers, but one, two, three viewers. How are you, Declan? How are things? What I'm going to do here is see how many people tune in. I don't know if it would have been more at the time it was meant to be, but hopefully they'll see this and they'll see the. I'll try and put disclaimer or an explanation on that video so that people think, well, they don't think that I'm just messing around, that it was a legitimate issue. Um, Free viewers, again, please say something if you're here. Please ask me anything. Let's see if we can get a topic going. Um, I'll see how this goes, and keep it running for maybe, well, we'll just see how it goes. But I do need participation. Nah, it's okay. These things can't be helped. And yeah, not too bad getting over a cold and recently had to have ears microtioned. I'm sorry, I'm not sure what that is. Was blocked with wax for nearly 3 weeks. So that was a medical procedure. Well, I hope that's okay now, Declan. It sounds uncomfortable. Um, so that had to be done medically. But anyway, it sounds like it's been sorted, so that's good. How's it going? I'm good, thank you, Zayn. Thank you for asking. I I'm running a bit against the deadline because I'm doing a freelance journalism course and it has to be completed by October. And I basically have a tutorial and a tutorial with its assignment, one more assignment to do. So I'm feeling a little bit of pressure from that because if I don't meet that deadline, well, I won't pass the course. and there's what 13 days of a month left. So I'm under a little bit of pressure from that. The reading isn't too difficult. It's not a particularly hard course, but the assignments are challenging enough because you have to treat it like a real assignment. You have to, think about what publications will publish your work, who you can interview, all these sort of questions. Welcome, Andrew. Um, Microsuctions, I see. So you can join the words before. Yeah, it was quite good to hear properly again. So I imagine you would have had like a sort of numb sensation in your ears before that. Do you think it got infected, or anyway? You don't need to tell me. I'm not too familiar with the process. Um, no, quite a few getting over COVID too. I've got both vaccines now, so I don't know if you guys are on the same boat, but it's it's difficult to know where this thing is going because just as I thought the situation really had been improving, we're now seeing the death toll in three figures again, which is awful. It could be that we're coming up to winter. We're now in autumn, winter. So, seasonal flu is always bad at this time of the year anyway. Um, I just hope I just hope that some degree of normality returns to the world next year, not just this country, but the world, because I had intended to go to the United States next year for personal reasons. I won't go into that right now because nothing is settled, but let's just say it's an important thing. And I really, really hope things get back as much to normal as possible. As it stands, apparently we can't travel to the United States. I was checking the American embassy earlier. I thought there were restrictions. I thought it was like an amber zone country. I thought, well, we'd have to do tests or something, but I didn't realize it was now totally off restrictions. So I just, I'm so fed up with this pandemic. And the restrictions with it, particularly around travel. I mean, my job as a journalist will involve travel, so that will affect me directly in that sense. Sorry, guys, just scrolling back a bit. Um, okay, Andrew, I'm double vax, but that's worrying news about the Delta variant. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I remember hearing a report that the vaccines that are developed for coronavirus will not necessarily be guaranteed to be effective against Delta. So when does this nightmare end? When does it? It's depressing. I mean, I'm thinking the Spanish flu, the 1918 pandemic, wasn't really formally over until late 1920, which was almost a full 3 years after it first broke out in about mid 1918. And it looks like this is a similar time frame. To be honest, I don't think the world's going to be fully out of this or largely out of this until maybe early 2023, if I were to put a guess on it. It seems that it hit developed countries hard in the beginning, Europe, North America. Now it's really impacting South America, India, Indonesia. Um, the UK, we were second for a while. We've now went down to eighth place in terms of the death toll. The United States and Brazil remain very, very high. It's just incredible how much this thing's affected the world. Um, just got fed up with using my eardrops. Has that always been a problem for you, Declan? Have you always had ear problems? Was it like a childhood infection, or just something that you've had to do? Again, you don't need to say. I'm just curious. Zane, that's awesome. Yeah, I know what you mean. Feeling under pressure. Yeah, I mean, recently, there's just been a lot of little things I feel like I'm trying to sort out, and I can't say I'm not working a 9 to 5 job. I'm more or less unemployed, but it's I feel pressure in different ways, just sorting different things out. I always feel like no matter how much I tidy, there's always something more to do, and I don't know. I do feel some pressure. Um, Andrew, my stepdad is currently in hospital with severe lung infection. I'm sorry to hear that, Andrew. Is that COVID related, or is it something else? Obviously, I hope he recovers. I know that can be worrying. My father had an operation earlier this year. He had a heart attack, so I know that can be worrying when a family member's in that situation. So I hope he'll be okay. On the other hand, I mean, my father was treated in Clydebank outside Glasgow, and that was superb healthcare he got, superb work the nurses done. So um, if your stepdad's under NHS care, Andrew, he's in good hands, I would say. Um, let's see. Same. I'm still working on my portfolio for web development and hoping to start my career soon while working at Amazon as a delivery driver living alone. Wishing you all the best from Florida. Great channel. Thanks a lot, buddy. I appreciate that. Um, I can imagine as an Amazon driver, you're pretty busy. I mean, obviously, the size of the company and the amount of, especially in these COVID times, there must be big demand because people, I imagine, are buying more online. I certainly have been. I don't buy from Amazon, but from eBay. Sorry, rival company, but I can imagine it's big demand. What career are you looking for, Zay, and what would you like to do? Well, web development, is that something you'd like to expand in? When you say your career, is that something you'd like to go into further? Declan, yeah, apparently might be another lockdown this winter if vaccine resistant variant comes along, but so hope not as we need normality. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know what the government's got to do. Here in Sunderland, I saw like a kind of van that was promoting vaccines the other day. So whether in this city there's a limit on the number of people vaccinated. I know, incidentally, with this cabinet reshuffle recently, one of the ministers who was promoted, Nadeem Sahawi, was praised for his role in the vaccine rollout. It's one thing we can be proud of in this country. I do think we've had a largely successful vaccine rollout. On the other hand, we've had a high death rate, but he's got an interesting backstory. He was an Iraqi refugee. He's now a cabinet member in the British government. So interesting backstory there. And he is now the I think he's the new education secretary. Yeah, Nadeem Sahawi. No, first time it happened regarding ears. It sounds like you might have got an infection then, Declan. I don't know. Maybe something got in there. Andrew, one of my closest friends is American, and she's told me about the appalling health insurance monopoly, which is what it is over there. Yeah, it's interesting. I actually was watching an episode of Friends earlier. If any of you guys watch that show, I love Friends. I'm a huge fan of Friends. But there's an episode where Rachel gets injured, Jennifer Aniston's character, and she goes to the hospital. And because Monica's better off than she is, Monica's a chef. She is, I don't know what Rachel's doing at that time, but she has no insurance. And yeah, they sort of talk about switching their insurance, which would be illegal. But in Britain, that wouldn't even be a question. It would just be like, well, you're treated. So it's one thing I have to say I'm very grateful for to be British. The way I see it, our NHS is far from perfect. My mother was a nurse for 40 years. There's problems within the organization of the system, but I think the principle that we have, i.e., universal healthcare, from my perspective, is a very good one. And I'm very grateful that we have it. I.e., it doesn't matter what your background is, you could be a millionaire or you could be homeless. You'll get healthcare in this country on some level. And you don't, at least it's not a point of worrying about money. I mean, we do have to pay for some things, dental care, and a few other areas of healthcare, but the basic principle of universal healthcare is there, and I think that's extremely important. Many parts of the world, not just the United States, but other parts of the world, they don't have that. So I think we should be very grateful for that. He was a very heavy smoker. We don't know yet if it's COVID. Well, from what I understand, my father is also a smoker, pipe smoker. Certainly, if I don't want to worry you, Andrew, but certainly I understand if people are smokers, that doesn't help. But I really hope he's okay. I'm sure he's in good hands, and yeah, I would just say if it's possible, try and keep in touch with the hospital. Um, which hospital is he in, incidentally? I'm not asking for the exact hospital, but is it in Glasgow or because my father was treated in Clydebank. I forget the name of the hospital there, but he got very good treatment, I have to say. So, yeah, hopefully your stepdad will be okay. Birmingham, okay. Oh, sorry, Andrew. I think you mentioned you were in the Midlands before. Um, well, I mean, if it's an NHS hospital, he'll be in good hands. Hello, Carl. Welcome. What are your thoughts on artificial intelligence? I'm a bit concerned about it myself. That's an interesting question. Alon Kilchi, any movies you're hyped for? By the way, Alon, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is it Kilchi? Kilsi? How do I pronounce that? Well, I guess you can't vocalize, but I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. Nick, the manager. This is good, guys. I'm getting a good feedback here. I didn't think I'd get any responses because of the delayed time frame here. Um, I don't live in Scotland anymore. I apologize, Andrew. I think you did mention that before. My memory sometimes is not great, so I apologize for that. Nick, the manager, heart disease is this country's biggest killer, actually, mainly caused by our poor diets. Um, Nick, the manager, you're talking about the UK? Sorry, I'm just scrolling back here. The comments are quite lively. Yeah, yeah, it is. I believe it's heart disease and it was something else. Because I remember seeing the statistics on this a few years ago. Certainly, COVID has been responsible for a big chunk of that, 134,000 at least. But in terms of regular times, definitely heart disease and cancer. Yeah, those two things are big killers. Interestingly, in developing countries, for example, in African countries, rates of cancer are very low by comparison. So, whether that's something in the diets that we get in developed countries, I don't know. Let's see here. I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Alon Kilchi. That's good to know. Um, any movies I'm hyped for? Okay, I'll approach a few things here. Carl McGee, I'll come back to your question if you just hold by. Alan Kilchi, any movies I'm hyped for? The new Bond film for sure. I mean, my goodness, I've stopped even like anticipating it because I just expect another delay, another delay. I'm looking forward to it. I just hope it isn't too woke. I hope they don't get too politically correct. And the trailer, a few people were saying like that woman sort of saying, keeping your lane, Bond. Well, he's been doing it for 50 years. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Apparently, it's going to be a big homage to Dr. No. So, I don't know. I'm looking forward to that one. I have to check the cinema listings, actually. To be honest, I'm just happy the cinema is opened again because in Sunderland, we only have one cinema, one big multiplex. And during the pandemic, during the lockdown, that is, I was seriously worried it would close permanently because of the business losses. But thankfully, we reopened. I watched a film recently actually called Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds. My taste in films has expanded over the years. This is the sort of film I wouldn't have watched a few years ago, but I watched it basically. If you've seen Ready Player One and you've seen Groundhog Day, it's like something between the two, but it's very yeah, I thought it was pretty entertaining. It was a bit woke at certain points, like certain lines were a bit obviously woke, but it was entertaining enough. um yeah, so if you get a chance to see Free Guy, interesting film. Basically, it's about this guy who doesn't realize he's part of a computer game, and anyway, check it out. Um, but certainly the new Bond film is up there. I'm sure there'll be other things. I might actually check my local cinema website after this live stream, see what's on. A lot of the films I've watched this year have been a bit over the top, kind of like. Basically, I'll tell you what I've watched this year in the big screen. That is, I've watched Kong versus Godzilla. Nobody, which was kind of, I thought it would be a good thriller, but it got a bit over the top in the end. It had its moments, but it was a bit over the top, and the violence just kind of silly in the end. It was filmed in Winnipeg, uh, but the city was unnamed in the production. And it's basically about this ordinary guy who kind of we find out is a former CIA hitman, and he takes revenge against these Russian criminals. And it had a good premise, but it went way over the top in the violence, just comically so. What else did I watch? Goodness, it eludes me now. Fall Guy I mentioned, or excuse me, Free Guy, and there was something else that I'll come back to if I can remember. Um, it's my birthday. Happy birthday, Sunship. Apologies, I missed that, but happy birthday, happy birthday. Hope you're having a good day. Feel free to tell us what age. And my videos are awesome. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. I just try to be honest. I just try to raise topical content. That's what I do. So thank you very much. I really appreciate positive feedback, and I hope you're having a good birthday. My own birthday recently was kind of uneventful, but sometimes that's a way to do it. Contra Tiempo, The Invisible Guest, available on YouTube for free, is a Spanish film. It's a wonderful thriller. Contra Tiempo. I might check it out if I have time. Recently, I've went on to Netflix. My sister-in-law put me onto her service, and you're kind of spoiled for choice there. I admit I was a bit skeptical about Netflix because I kind of had this idea, oh, it's going to destroy cinema, and I didn't like the fact that you had to be like subscribed. I was a bit skeptical of that whole side of it, but I must admit it has a lot of good options. I'm 19 this year. You're just a baby. No offense, no offense. I'm an old man. I'm 36. But yeah, live it up, son. Tube. You've got many good years ahead. So live it up. Take opportunities. That's very important. I don't want to sound like a wise old man here, but do throughout your 20s, please take opportunities as they come. Because you only live once, so take opportunities. Um, Carl, I'm going out soon, so I might not be able to stay for the live stream. I'm getting a chair. Uh, I just want you to know. Oh, you're buying a new chair? Well, I'll quickly address your question about artificial intelligence, just because you did ask. Um, I think it's like a lot of things with technology. It could be good or bad. I think we do have to be a bit wary of the extent of technological developments. I personally would not want to live in a world where technology becomes so advanced that it replaces basic humanity. And I already see that happening to some extent. I mean, certainly the pandemic's affected everything, but let's say in normal times, let's say you go into a party and everyone's staring at their phone. That's depressing. Um, Technology can be a very good thing, but we have to be wary of overt reliance on it. As for artificial intelligence, it's not something I've studied or thought about extensively, but there was a good series on, I think it was Channel 4 a few years ago, called Humans, starring Gemma Chan. And basically, it was about these synthetic humans that were extremely lifelike, but they were basically robots. And, it was kind of, there's a term for that, actually, it's called uncanny valley, whereby people get uneasy saying a replica of a person that is not a person but looks eerily like a person. This is already being developed in Japan, South Korea. I think it's something that people need to be. I mean, there could be areas where it could be good. For example, if those synths or those androids, artificial intelligence, if it's utilized for things that people don't want to do, maybe menial, dirty, dangerous jobs, it could be good. For example, for bomb disposal, which means there's no human casualties of the. Whereas now it would be a soldier or a specialist police officer. I guess some robotics do that, but it's like anything. It could have advantages, but we need to be a bit cautious with it. Um, so AI Skynet. Skynet seems to be inevitable. Welcome, Robert. I must admit, I don't know much about Skynet, so I can't comment much about that. Carl, if you need to go, feel free. Thank you for joining us. I hope I've addressed your point about artificial intelligence. Honestly, I don't know too much about it. Andrew, I'm an old man too. I'm 34. It's us older millennials, Andrew. We're going to be giving our sage wisdom to Generation Z these days. Nick the manager. What's Sunderland like? I would be nervous walking around there at night. No offense. Where are you from, Nick? Are you from a rural area or another city? Well, basically, I've grown up in Sunderland. This is my city. You may not be able to tell from my accent. I have a Belfast accent because that's the city I was born in. But honestly, I know Sunderland a lot better. I know the basic sites in Belfast, but it's a city that's changed a lot since I was there. from 95 to 2000. So Sunderland, basically, you're welcome, Carl. Sunderland is, here's the thing with Sunderland, if I had to summarize it, it's one of those places that doesn't get the best reputation. It's seen as a little bit of a backwater, i.e., it's overshadowed by a more cosmopolitan city, which in this case is Newcastle upon Tyne. Think Birkenhead to Liverpool. Think, I guess, Stockport to Manchester. That's what Sunderland's like in that sense. That's the sort of reputation it has. Um, but we have a lot of good things. I mean, we're one of the few UK cities to have a beach within our boundaries. There's plenty of towns have beaches, but Sunderland's one of the few places that is, with city status that actually has a beach. We have Europe's largest air show, the Sunderland Air Show. We have a lot of listed buildings. Although we were hit during the war, we were blitzed. We still have a lot of listed buildings. We have a very good civic museum. I think it's one of the best, and I've been all over the country. We have a very pleasant public park. What else? We have the National Glass Centre. It's worth visiting. Um, Sunderland can be a beautiful city. I don't mean not so much. Okay, we have betting shops, we have rundown areas, we have rough estates, but some of there's a local photographer here, and he's taken sort of sunset photos from the River Wear. That is beautiful. Um, what else can I say about Sunderland? We're not the wealthiest city. I'm not going to lie. We're not the most cosmopolitan city. I do think that we have too many betting shops, which could be a little bit depressing. But as for crime levels, actually, according to Home Office statistics, Sunderland is not too bad. This is not to say that we don't have rough areas and we don't have some scummy people. We do. I'm not going to lie, but and at night time, Sunderland could be a bit rough. But to be honest, which British town or city isn't? Even genteel places like Oxford have their problems. So yeah, I'm happy to live in Norwich. Norwich is a city I've never visited, but I'd like to because I love history, and Norwich, of course, is a very historic city. Um, Nick, the manager, where are you from? I'm just curious now where you're actually from. Robert Kelly, what's your thoughts on Irish president not attending Northern Ireland Centenary commemoration? Honestly, Robert, I didn't know about that. I haven't. I mean, to be honest, the news I've been following recently is the 9/11 20th anniversary commemorations, events in Afghanistan, the cabinet reshuffle, some COVID developments. So honestly, I'm not familiar with that story, so I can't comment in detail. Um, but if that's the case, of course, this is Northern Ireland Centenary. I think partly because of the pandemic and partly because of Brexit politics, it's been relatively low key in general. I mean, Northern Ireland's 100 years old. You'd think that would be a pretty big thing, but certainly here in the mainland, it's pretty mute. I suspect most people don't even know about it. I knew about it, but honestly, what's has he stated a reason for that? Um, I can't comment in detail, honestly, because I haven't followed the story. But I just wonder, has he stated a particular reason for that? I mean, is it Brexit related, or is it what's is there an official reason from Dublin as to why that is? Andrew, my girlfriend's late father was born in Newcastle. I assume you mean Newcastle upon Tyne, but lived in Birmingham for over 50 years and never lost his. Well, that's Lance's Geordie accent. We actually have five Newcastles in the UK. I don't know if you guys realise that. So there's the big one, Newcastle upon Tyne. There's Newcastle under Lyne in the Potteries near Stoke-on-Trent. There's Newcastle Emlyn in Wales. There's a Newcastle in County Down, Northern Ireland, which is one of the places that claims to be the wettest town in the United Kingdom. And I think there's another Newcastle somewhere. Um, I'm going now. I hope I can talk to you soon. Take care, Carl, and thanks for joining in. Um, favorite band? Well, Alon, I don't really have a favorite band as such. In the late 90s, there was kind of an ABBA resurgence. And I must admit, I was quite into ABBA at that time. I still like the music. As for more contemporary bands, I don't know if you call them a band, but there was a Norwegian duo called Royksop. They done sort of alternative chill out type music in the 2000s, and they had a well known hit called So Easy and Apple. And one of those, I think it was Apple, was used for a T-Mobile ad, and that was just really super cool. A very, very unique style, very unique sound. So Royksop, they're a Norwegian duo. Who else? Quite like some of Travis's stuff. The Beatles. I'm just randomly naming bands here, but I wouldn't say there's any band that I'm a diehard fan of, that I'd go out of my way to go and see in concert, for example. Amongst, like, I have a Van Halen album. I like some of their stuff. But my taste in music is pretty eclectic. I like a lot of different things. There isn't even any individual artists I would necessarily pay to go and see. I mean, I like Billy Joel, and I like some more modern artists, quite like Lana Del Rey. But again, I'm not so crazy about any individual artist that I would pay to go to see them. In fact, I attended the Live 8 concert in London in 2005, which was massive concert for Make Poverty History. Like seriously, about a quarter of a million people in Hyde Park, and some of the most famous people in the world were there. So Bill Gates was there, Brad Pitt was there, Elton John, Dido, Coldplay. It was an incredible, incredible atmosphere. But I'm not going to pay £100 to see. Like, if someone told me Billy Joel's performing in the Stadium of Light here in Sunderland, would I go out of my way to go and see him? Not necessarily, because I'd be thinking, well, unless I've got a front row seat, what's the point? But anyway, that's a good question. How about you, Alan? Do you have a favorite band? I mean, honestly, there's a lot of artists I like. This guy called Parov Steller. He's a Hungarian sort of, I guess you call it, say, electro swing type artist. He's kind of mostly active on YouTube. It's, but yeah, I don't really have any specific um, taste. The obvious one and the underlying one, yeah. Um, yeah, so Newcastle, Emlyn, and Newcastle and County Down, they're both small places, so I think you could be forgiven for not knowing those. Um, there is one other, but I can't remember where it is. Nick the Manager, okay, fair enough. Guess not as bad as I thought. I'm for Wellington, Somerset. Very boring, really. I have a question about Wellington, Somerset, actually. Was the town named after Wellington, as in the famous Arthur Wellesley, Duke of Wellington? Or, I mean, I know he was Duke of Wellington, so was his peerage, was that coming from the town? Or was the town renamed? Is it a new town? Does it have an old history? Um, does that make sense? I mean, was the town developed around? I know there's a big memorial there, and I understand actually it's the largest, because I literally read about this the other day. It's the tallest three-sided monolith in the world, apparently. Very boring, really. I almost wish stuff would kick off at times. Yeah, I don't think I could live in a rural area, to be honest. I mean, in the UK, we have some beautiful, beautiful places, and certainly the southwest has always struck me as being aesthetically beautiful. But I've lived in the countryside. I lived in a small village in Northern Ireland for 5 years. It was enough. It really was. Um, Sunderland is definitely not the most cosmopolitan city, but at least it has amenities. And for me, if I was living in the countryside, that's what I'd miss most of all. I would miss the cinema. I would miss just the feel of being in a city. I mean, being from Northern Ireland, there's only really one big city, which is Belfast. Derry's sizable, but it's still not huge. So in Northern Ireland, sort of got this thing where a medium-sized town, which in England would be considered small, somewhere like Coleraine, population 20,000. That was considered a mega city in Northern Ireland because that's where everything was. So definitely a strange feeling. Let's see. Um, so yeah, Nick, that's my question. Is Wellington named after Arthur Wellesley, or was Arthur Wellesley? Did he just get his peerage from the town? Seems like I know more about your town. Yeah, I just like geography and history, to be honest. So I have an almanac on. I don't know where it is. I must have put it away on towns and cities. Somerset's very hilly, isn't it? I mean, it's not a flat county. My impression of Somerset is it's quite hilly. You have Exmoor, or is that Devon? And I know there's Glastonbury, Tor. I was reading actually about Somerset in the Times today. Apparently, there was a 16th century cleric who was executed under the dissolution of the monasteries, and locals there are petitioning for him to be pardoned, which is incredible. Let's see. Just sort of trying to answer these one by one. Suntrue, me too. I'm not too mad for overly commercialized bands. I feel they are overreacted. I prefer small artists. Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't like. I have a friend who's really into music. He writes music. I'm not sure if he described himself as a musician, but he certainly he dabbles a lot in that, and he really doesn't like this business of manufactured bands. I'm quite skeptical of that. I mean, beginning probably in the late 1990s onwards, it does seem that there's way too much focus on these big gurus in the music industry sculpting everything. And one reason I don't like shows like X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, it seems to be more to be a popularity contest than art for art's sake. And to me, there's a cruelty factor to it. I'm going to preach a bit here, but basically they allow people to get through those stages just so the audience can jeer at them and laugh at them, and so the judges can talk down to them. It just seems there's something unpleasant about the whole format. I've never liked it. Um, but that seems to be the only way, unfortunately, musicians can get recognized nowadays. It's very unfortunate. I mean, I've seen some people on YouTube who are extremely talented, and I'm thinking they need to be a lot better known. Robert, by the way, guys, if I get cut off, it's my Wi Fi, so just to let you know, that's what the issue is. I suppose being Irish president, he doesn't support partition. Yeah, that's true. Same as you. DUP, boycotting the Easter Rising Centenary. I'm just reading the article. Um, yeah, I mean, that would make sense, of course. But you'd think being 100 years ago, it would be. I mean, I could understand if it was like, a referendum today or something like that, which seems inevitable in the case of Northern Ireland. But I don't know, a centenary for something that happened 100 years ago. I remember when the Queen visited Dublin and she actually laid a wreath at the Easter Rising um, memorial in Dublin. That was a very poignant event. So I personally hope that Ireland and Britain can work very closely together. I mean, Ireland's our closest neighbour, literally. So whilst I may be Northern Irish and proud to be British, I do want us to have good relations with the Republic. I've been in many bands on the guitar and drums, and I never made a damn penny because it always goes to the greedy promoters. Yeah, Andrew, I can imagine that's quite disillusioning sometimes within the industry. Like, I don't know if you do it as a hobby or if you're really ambitious in that. Like, if you and your band would like to go further, or if it's more like a hobby. But I can imagine it's that side of it can be frustrating. The X Factor is a musical version of the Jeremy Kyle show. Yeah, I pretty much agree, Andrew. I mean, I just say the way I look at shows like X Factor is if someone isn't talented, okay, it's a talent show, so don't put them through to the final stage. I mean, if they don't have talent, if they're going to be voted off, why humiliate them that way? Why bring it through to that stage? It seems to me to just be exploitative entertainment. I really It makes me uneasy. As you say, it's a Jeremy Kyle show of the music world, or the musical version of the Jeremy Kyle show. And you get these judges who just they've got a lot of power and they talk down to people. I don't like any shows like that. I just feel I don't like it. To me, Somerset is a bit pointless. Devon and Cornwall always worth visiting. A bit pointless. I just like the way you say that. Devon and Somerset, or Devon and Cornwall, always worth visiting if you were thinking of seeing the southwest. Well, I know Cornwall, of course, is a county with a very rich history of folklore, and is very sort of distinctive county with its Celtic heritage. Devon, of course, a big county. Um, I was going to say far from the madding crowd, but that's probably more Dorset. The closest I've been to that area is Bristol, which is, I love Bristol as a city, but I've never been into the southwest counties. My parents have. My parents did go to the Eden Project in Cornwall, but they were disappointed because it was raining the whole time. But that's the weather. What can you do? Um, let's see. I don't think country can afford another lockdown. I dread that. Joe Biden is getting a lot of heat lately, and oh yeah, glad X Factor is no longer on now. Scummy show. Oh, I didn't realize it was off. What? It's been cancelled? What, permanently? Whoa, that's news to me. But good riddance. You know, the fewer of those sort of shows we have, the better. I remember the 1990s. I'm old enough to remember the 90s, and it was more like entertainment for entertainment's sake. There was shows like Stars in the Rise with Matthew Kelly. It was all fun. It was all like inclusive, and everyone enjoyed themselves. There was no mean spirited exploitation, at least not in the same way. Um, Robert, is sectarian tensions in Northern Ireland worse since Brexit referendum, in your opinion? Well, looking at the scenes earlier this year of the riots, that was, very sad to see because a lot of those teenagers rioting were born after the Good Friday Agreement. And what for? To be honest, I don't miss Northern Ireland. I'll always have a Northern Irish identity, but I don't miss it. I don't miss the pettiness of it. I don't miss the from both sides. From both sides. I just think it's sad to see that. Is it worse since Brexit? It's difficult to say. I certainly think Brexit hasn't helped. And I do think some people, perhaps on the mainland, who are very pro leave, they are a bit complacent about the implications in Northern Ireland. But what can you do? I also believe people are responsible for their own actions. So if you get idiots throwing Molotov cocktails at the police or basically damaging their own communities, responsible politicians, whether they're unionists or nationalists, need to be condemning that and taking responsibility for reining in on that behaviour. Because this is just it's unacceptable that Belfast continues to be a byword for riots. It makes me angry, to be honest, because it's a great city. It shouldn't be still seeing this in 2021. Thomas, hi mate, good to see you live again. Did you see the Shamina Begum interview in Good Morning Britain? I didn't see the interview, but I saw her makeover, which is it's just so flipping obvious. I mean, she goes from being covered in the hijab and the full Islamist attire to being this westernized teenager, long hair and just makeup, and it's just very, very obvious. Um, my views on Shamina Begum, I certainly think that in terms of she says she was a naive teenager and her biggest mistake was stupidity. But for me, something that sits uncomfortably is it took her a very, very long time to apologize for endorsing this death cult that has killed British citizens. I will say this though, I don't think that Shamina Begum is the most dangerous Islamist out there. And I think that she's become a little bit of a political football. Don't get me wrong, I have very little sympathy with her, but I do think we need to focus more on jihadists in this country. And honestly, I think if Shamina Begum came back at this point, I understand both sides. I understand the argument she doesn't deserve to come back, but I really think she's so high profile that the Islamists cannot use her. She's a liability to them. So I think maybe we overstate her threat a little bit. I mean, I think certainly if I'd lost a loved one in the Manchester bombing, I would really hate her guts, to be quite honest. But in the scale of Islamist threats, I don't think she's at the top of the list. Yeah, totally agree, Andrew. Takes a lot of nerves to pay in front of 50 people, let alone tens of thousands. I remember seeing on the American version of one of those shows, this guy started playing up and there was some technical issues. His guitar wasn't quite stringed correctly or something. But, it was a technical problem. And the flipping audience immediately started jeering the guy. And I'm thinking, just, it pissed me off, to be honest. Sorry for the language, that sort of thing. I'm thinking, you get up on that stage, you try performing. That sort of thing disgusts me. I'm just trying to go through the comments one by one. Suntube, what are my thoughts on the new UK, US, Australia, US, UK new military alliance? Is it any good to load your nuclear weapons, as most are under pacts not to use it to counter China? Well, that's probably worth a video in its own right, but it's a good question. Broadly speaking, I support it. I understand French frustrations to an extent because they had this trade agreement with Australia and they feel they've sort of been undermined in that sense. The Chinese, of course, the Chinese government's going to throw a tantrum. But the way I see it is not long ago, the Australians called for an independent inquiry into COVID. They didn't even name China. And China's response was to make these threats against the Australian wine industry. So I think the Chinese regime has to understand if they're going to threaten our ally, we're going to back them. All three countries have a vested interest in standing up to China. Unfortunately, as Ben Wallace said, it's China that's notching up the Cold War rhetoric, not the West. Um, I mean, I really don't think we can have a situation where Beijing is threatening our ally, and it's just accepted. You know, I'm not going to pretend I'm neutral on this. I will always support any allegiance against China from democratic countries. As to Canada and New Zealand, particularly New Zealand, I really think that under the government of Jacinda Ardern, they're playing a very reckless game of like basically appeasement. Um, I understand that she doesn't want to be seen as a puppet of the United States, but at the same time, her current stance is going to make New Zealand look like a pushover to a rising superpower. It's not good politics. So a pact like this is always going to have some contentious areas, but I also think it was inevitable, to be honest. I mean, like I say, there's probably a lot more talking points around that. Let's see here. Um, okay. Robert, I'm from the Republic of Ireland, Cork. Wish Northern Ireland well, whether part of the United Ireland or the UK. Yeah, thanks for saying that. I mean, obviously, I do as well. Incidentally, my grandmother was born in 1920, the year before partition. So she passed away in 2017 at 97. So basically, her entire lifetime was within the history of Northern Ireland. But she was born in a United Ireland. Nick the Manager, Bristol could be considered Somerset. Well, half of it anyway. Yeah, I know Bristol's a curious thing because there is a county of Bristol. It's, I believe, it's a unitary authority, as in it doesn't belong to any county. But historically speaking, I know South Bristol was Somerset, North Bristol was Gloucestershire. A little bit like if you look at old maps, Newcastle used to be part of Northumberland, but it's now since 1974 Tyne and Wear, and there's probably other examples of that. Middlesex, which is now North London or Northwest London. Really, Middlesex no longer exists, but you still see it in old maps. And I mean, basically, Middlesex is entirely urbanized. Other examples of this, if you look at old maps, Liverpool and Manchester were historically Lancashire. They're now Merseyside and Greater Manchester. So I know for older generations that was controversial, but what's interesting is that Government Act of 1974 is already almost 50 years old. So in that sense, Greater Manchester, Tyne and Wear are actually starting to become established now. Um, I think there's also a unitary authority in Northeast Somerset, but anyway, yeah, probably Bristolians would consider themselves a bit of both. Um, Declan, yeah, as Simon Cowell said, it's to stop the show becoming a joke. That's a bit rich coming from him. What do I fix next for Prince Andrew? Do you think he should ever return to royal life? Well, the thing about Prince Andrew, I don't know what's went on behind closed doors. I think there's definitely some murky things going on. I think if he's entirely innocent, then it makes him look extremely naive at best. But there is too many question marks with this. I would say this: if we extradite him to the United States, to face questioning there, the Americans we could have some sort of deal whereby Prince Andrew goes over there for questioning. In return, the woman Anne Sekulis, I believe she was called, the wife of the diplomat, can come here for questioning over that teenage lad that was killed in Norfolk, because that would be a goodwill gesture on the part of both countries. Um, but obviously, he's the Queen's son. It's not like a normal situation. However, there cannot be a perception that he's getting special treatment. If there's any indication of criminal involvement or cover ups or anything like that, Prince Andrew shouldn't be above reproach. Um, I watched his interview with Claire Maitlis. I think it was Claire Maitlis. And certainly there's question marks. Some of the things he said don't quite add up. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to just condemn the man and say, oh, he's guilty. I don't know. But I do think he hasn't entirely helped his own case. And it must be really, really difficult for the Queen. I mean, she's lost her husband, and her second son is facing this immense scrutiny. But I think the royal family don't want to look as if they are kind of protecting him too much if he does have things to answer. Do I think the English would be devastated if United Ireland does happen in the future, or would it only be also Unionist loyalists? Um, Thomas, well, this is a follow up. I am English living in Wales. I'd be devastated if Northern Ireland left the Union. That's good to hear, Thomas, because honestly, being Northern Irish, I've sometimes wondered about that. I sometimes do wonder if people in the mainland would care that much. But you've just answered to that. You're at least one representative of that side of the equation. Certainly for Northern Irish people, if there was apathy from the mainland, it would sort of feel like a betrayal, because the Northern Irish unionist culture is very, very, let's say, sentimental about British ties. So, for example, the first day of the Battle of the Somme, the 36th Ulster Division, including an ancestor of mine, died in their thousands for the British Empire. Um, Belfast was one of the most blitzed cities during the war. So Northern Irish men and women have certainly played their part in serving this country. Um, but I guess that's something we'll only know with time. I do think, for what it's worth, I do think in England there is a degree of, well, Northern Irish politics, what's new, these sort of disputes over. I think a lot of people in the mainland can't quite understand the sectarian side of it, because apart from Liverpool and Glasgow, it just doesn't really exist on the mainland, the sectarian tensions in that sense. So I do think sometimes people on the mainland think, well, also things like the DUP and their attitudes to women's rights and a few other issues do seem a bit archaic in mainland politics. But like Thomas said, certainly there would be people, and certainly in the case of the Conservative Party, their full title, as Theresa May said, is the Conservative and Unionist Party. So I do think there's Conservative MPs and perhaps Conservative members who would feel a sentimental connection to Northern Ireland. I would imagine so, but it's a good question. I mean, put it this way: if Northern Ireland rejoined the United Ireland and the rest of the country didn't really care, I would personally feel very strange about that. I would think, well, what the hell is my place? I'm Northern Irish, I'm British. A huge chunk of our country has just left. I guess it would be a bit like, I'd make this analogy. Imagine if Texas or California became independent and the rest of the United States didn't really care. The way American politics is right now, there's a lot of Americans who would say, I couldn't care less if Texas leaves, because the differences between the states is such that, for example, recently on the abortion issue. So it's an interesting question, but Thomas, it's interesting to see your answer. Let's see. Declan, I think X Factor purposely set people up to fail. Check out Zoe Alexander, former contestant, exposing their arses. I don't know about that story, but I can imagine. Tamsa Coast, old friend. Naomi, welcome. It's good to see a female in the comment thread. Tamsa Coast, old friend. I'm sorry, I don't follow. Nick, the manager, Big Brother in 2000 changed everything, and all the trash like Jimmy Carroll, X Factor following its footsteps. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Nick. It's something that is, I'd pinpoint to the very late 90s to early 2000s. I remember when Big Brother came out, it was a novelty, but to be honest, reality TV since has been toxic. My local MP, Julie Elliott, was involved in the committee scrutinising ITV in the wake of the Jeremy Kyle scandal. I saw a nauseating report in The Sun the other day where Jeremy Kyle was actually whining about how hard it was for him after that guest died on the show. The arrogance of this man is staggering. How hard it was for him, yet he didn't show his face to that committee. You know, this is a guy who had no problem vilifying people on his show, but he couldn't answer questions. Pathetic. Welcome, Naomi. Tamsa Coast. Naomi, is that Thai by any chance? I'm just wondering what you're asking. Son, even if there's no threat from Shamina, but I guess on account of betraying your country's democratic values and defending extremism, she doesn't deserve to live in any democratic country. Yeah, I think there's a strong argument for that. But here's the problem with Shamina Begum, and this is something we have to consider. She is, I understand that she is British Bangladeshi. I don't know if she was born in the UK or in Bangladesh, but here's the problem. If she was born in the UK, I mean, at the moment, a lot of those ISIS camps in Syria are run by the Kurds. Now, the Kurds say they don't want foreign inmates, they don't want foreign nationals. So the question becomes, well, if she's not our responsibility, whose responsibility is she? Because the Kurds don't want her. That's where the difficulty lies. If we kind of wash our hands of her, then whose responsibility is she? That's the difficulty. And the problem is we do have homegrown Islamists. I mean, remember the London bombers were all from Leeds, so that's a problem when it comes to Shamina Begum. How's my report on major cities coming along? Thanks for asking. Will I publish it online? Probably not online, simply because it's messy. It's mostly just loose notes. But acoustics, which is the study of this, is something that's always fascinated me. I'll definitely be making a video about that. In fact, I could show you guys the latest. Just give you a few notes here. This is actually, let's see, this is what I call the catchment areas. So this is the area, not the population, but the area around major world cities. So as you can see, it's loose notes. Let's see here. Johannesburg, Kinshasa, Mexico City. I'm only going on urban agglomerations of 8 million or more for this. 8 million people or more. Istanbul, Baghdad, Tehran, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Moscow, Cairo. And you can see that it's very loose notes. But yeah, I'm roughly halfway, a little bit more than halfway. I still have to do West Africa, Canada and the United States, about half of South America, the Far East and Southeast Asia. Apart from the Philippines, I've done the Philippines. So that's where I am. But I've done the rest of the world, so probably about 2/3 of the way through. So yeah, thanks for asking. Prince Andrew, a man I'm ashamed to share the same first name as, deserves to have the book thrown at him. Yeah, what I would say, Andrew, is he should not be above reproach. But it should be due process. I mean, I also believe that there's allegations and there's facts, so the facts need to be established. So I definitely think he has questions to answer, for sure. Declan, do you have doubts Joe Biden will make it through his term because of his old age and health concerns and because of the Afghanistan situation? Well, regarding his age, I would say he's quite a robust 78-year-old. I mean, for all of Trump's partisan attacks on Sleepy Joe, I think Biden has vigor. I think, like, honestly, some of the attack points that Trump's come out with can be leveled at Donald Trump as well. After all, he's 74, 75. There's not that much of an age gap between them. They're both septuagenarians. Um, So for me, and as for his health, as far as I know, he's never had any major operations or health scares. He doesn't smoke. He's not a big drinker. So I don't think that's a major issue. I think he's quite a robust 78-year-old. Afghanistan, well, I made a video about that, but briefly about Afghanistan, I think his biggest mistake was in these kind of dogmatic announcements, like we will withdraw by this date, and just being so stubborn about it. Also, not informing the British, I think that was, kind of underhand. I thought a bit disrespectful to an ally to do it that way. But I also think that people, emotions are very strong at the moment because soldiers understandably feel betrayed. Afghan women feel betrayed. It's a very grim situation. But the other side of it is, had there still been a Western presence in Afghanistan, for how long? For how long? Now, what Biden said is he didn't want to pass this on to a fifth president: Bush, Obama, Trump, Biden. So I don't know. Will history judge Biden kindly or condemn him? The similarities with the follow Saigon are incredible. And I do think if the Taliban go back to their old ways, which looks very likely, then it won't go down well for Joe Biden. But I don't think it will cost him the presidency in 2024. Americans tend to vote on the issue of the day. I mean, think of Tony Blair. The Iraq War was 2003. He still won election in 2005. George Bush won re-election. So I think by 2024, this issue will have subsided. I don't think Americans will honestly vote on this issue. I think they're more likely to vote on his handling of COVID. So I think Trump will probably run because of Donald Trump, it's personal. I will say, though, it's very hypocritical of Trump to attack Biden on this. Trump entered talks with the Taliban. Trump was going to pull out even earlier. So this can rightly be called the Trump Biden policy. Okay, I'm going to round this up soon, guys, because it has been an hour now. This has been a very good session, by the way. So thank you, everyone. A lot better than I expected. Just going back, Naomi Pagadwan. Um, please leave another comment simply because I like more female input. Guys, I really respect your comments, but Naomi, I'd like to hear more from you. Please ask a question. Declan, do you have? Okay, I've already answered that. Thomas, what do you think of the culture of women now selling images of themselves on websites such as OnlyFans? The left seem to defend it so much, but I don't see how it's a good thing. Honestly, I'm not familiar with that. I'll have to check it out. I would say it's interesting, though, if the left is defending it, because you'd think it was left-wing feminists who were all against objectification of women, so it's kind of contradictory. I would say that, there is double messages. You can't, on one hand, basically show yourself in skimpy outfits, then say, oh, men are objectifying me. I'm sorry, but you can't